What is up, guys? Welcome back to the end of the year rankings, and now we are at the top 10 best movies of 2025. The movies that meant the most to me, the movies that I had the best theater experience with, the movies that I could see myself rewatching the most, 10 movies that made me the most excited to be a movie fan, that I was most excited to tell other people about. And you know what? This was a really hard list to narrow down to 10. Now, there's a lot of movies in 2025 that were okay, were mediocre, certainly had a lot of bad ones too. But my top 25 or so of all the films I saw last year, I really wanted all of them to be mentioned on this list. Every movie from like 11 all the way down to 25 or 30, I was frustrated that I had to leave out of my top 10. So eventually here, whenever I get back from LA, we are going to do that big monstrous video where I rank every single film that I saw last year. As of right now, I'm at 148. So most likely I'll close it out at 150, which is a shitload of movies, so I'll be able to talk about them before long. But these 10 here are the ones that most define last year's movies for me and will likely be the ones that I remember from this year and continue to watch the most. Now, on that note, there are a couple of films on here, 3 I believe, that are not actually going to release wide until 2026. Some people don't like to include film festival films and early release films and stuff like that on their end of the year lists. For me, I think it's better for me to tell you about them now. That way you can get excited for them. You can put them on your radar. You can prioritize seeing them next year rather than punting this conversation 12 months when it's already had its theatrical run and potentially a lot of you didn't even know that it existed. So that's my philosophy. If you don't enjoy hearing about movies you can't watch wide just yet, I'm sorry, but that's what we're going to be doing. And coming in at number 10 for me was a really big surprise. It's a movie I walked in and actually expected to be more likely to walk out disappointed and frustrated by it, but I had an absolute blast with this movie and I cannot wait to watch it again. And that is Predator: Badlands. Now, this is a film that was certainly divisive. There was a lot of people that did not like the stylistic choice to make a Predator your main character and to make it a PG-13 film. And when they first announced this movie and released the trailer, I honestly thought that I was going to feel that same way. I wasn't sure if I was going to want the roles of the Predator to be swapped into protagonist. I wasn't sure if having a PG-13 rating was going to make it feel watered down, even though I understood why with the stupid rules of the MPAA of green blood versus red blood and all that. And when I sat down to watch this was one of the most kick-ass action adventure movie experiences that I had all year round. I loved the main character of Deck. I really loved the side character played by Elle Fanning. A couple of moments that certainly were a little too cutesy for me, but they were few and far between. And I really enjoyed how video game inspired this movie was. That was the thing that charmed me about it the most, where it really did structure its story and the character's journey off of a lot of action adventure video games, where he lands on this planet and immediately loses all of his resources and his weapons, and then he has to build them all back up, build back his arsenal and learn certain skills, have multiple boss battles, all leading up to this ultimate boss battle, which is like this, gold star prey that nobody else has the balls to take down. By the end of it, even in the third act, it really did start to form itself into being kind of what you expect from the third act of any Predator film, where he gets his arsenal and he starts to use his environment and all the things that he learns to turn the tide on the enemy. And despite the fact that I definitely don't want Disney or Fox to learn the wrong lessons from this movie's good reception and say, hey, this is what we're going to do with Predator going forward, I would absolutely take a Predator Badlands sequel just to see more of Deck's storyline, or possibly if they're going to position him as one of the main characters for this Alien versus Predator film, which they're gearing up to give a second shot to. But regardless, Predator Badlands was an awesome action adventure experience. I loved it. It's my number 10. Number 9 is going to be The Long Walk, and I did not see this movie coming. It sounded intriguing enough. I was certainly going to go check it out. I love the really good Stephen King adaptations, although they're kind of few and far between nowadays. And when I sat down to watch this movie, I had no idea it was going to be probably the most emotionally devastating movie experience that I am going to have in 2025. A really great tale, a great setup here where you get a post-apocalyptic future where there's a lot of financial hardship, and they have this game that's meant for everybody's entertainment where a bunch of young men sign up for it to go on this long walk. And they don't really tell you about it right away, but if you stop walking, you die. And so it's a matter of just who's going to survive to the end and get the big prize. And that's a cool enough setup for like an action adventure sci-fi movie or even like an action horror movie. But they go more the dramatic route with this story, Stephen King. where it really is about the brotherhood and it's about these characters. And at first, you've kind of picked like your one or two characters that you think are going to be the leads, and you assume you're just going to be kind of latched onto them, and everybody else is going to be cannon fodder that you'll see get wiped out throughout the movie. But by the end of the first act, you start to really form an attachment to everybody that is walking. And the more that they develop a brotherhood and a relationship with each other, you as the audience member do the exact same thing with these characters. And then you have that growing pit in your stomach knowing that all but one of them are going to die a horrible and grisly death. It's just a matter of when. And the movie does a great job at just turning like these little unexpected things that you wouldn't think of as being gigantic hurdles for this game. Like if a shoe goes untied, if you have to take a shit, if there's like a really steep incline hill coming up, how are you going to sleep? Like, I think they did a great job at taking these little moments and turning them into these nail-biting sequences where you're on the edge of your seat, where you're holding your breath like, oh my God, hurry up and fucking tie that shoe, bitch. And overall, what the movie is talking about, and the overall theme of it, which is like this violent world, and a line of dialogue where one character, after seeing somebody get shot, says, man, I hope that starts to get easier. And another character saying, that's what I'm most afraid of. The movie released at a really weird time where, we had just had a lot of violence around us in the U.S. There was shootings, there was political assassinations, there was all kind of stuff surrounding the release of this movie. And so it just kind of hit at a moment where it's like, man, we really do live in an incredibly violent world. I really hope the dystopian future that movies like this are warning us about is not getting nearer to a possibility. So it was just a very powerful movie that I did not see coming. I've already watched it twice. I've already recommended it to everybody that I know that loves Stephen King movies that didn't get a chance to see it. And it is instantly went on to my top 10 Stephen King adaptations, which prior to watching it was a pretty ironclad list. So I love The Long Walk. Coming in at number 8 is Together. And for most of the year, I probably would have told you this was my favorite horror film of the year. That's how stacked of a year it was, especially for horror, that eventually this was bumped down to number 8. Because I loved this from the moment that I saw it. I saw the premiere at South by Southwest. It was a wild premiere because they had all these like contortionist dancers coming up onto stage and ringing bells and shit. I had no idea what the movie was about, so I'm like, what the fuck does this mean? And I thought Dave Franco and Alison Brie were great with each other. And I loved how this movie blended body horror with some very unsubtle, and I appreciate that sometimes, unsubtle social commentary, also with some physical comedy. It had some of the best scares of the year. It had some of the best tension of the year. And aside from like the last 90 seconds of the film where I didn't necessarily love the note that it ended on, it was just an experience where the more the movie went on, the more I was sucked into it, the more interested I was, the more batshit it got. And this was one that I could not wait to watch a second time. And it actually went to theaters when me and my wife had our anniversary. And so I gave her the choice of The Naked Gun or this, and she chose this. And let's just say I had an amazing experience revisiting this, and she looked at me like, who the fuck did I marry? Coming in at number 7 is a film that I saw premiere at Fantastic Fest that's going to be going wide in February, so please put it on your radar. And that is Gore Verbinski's new film called Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. This is a movie that when it was announced, and even when it was rumored to be one of the secret screenings of this year's Fantastic Fest, I could not have had less interest in it. I had never heard of it. The title just confused me. And Gore Verbinski, I like a number of his films, but he's a bit of a mixed bag for me, so I wasn't even really sure what to expect with his name attached to it. And within 5 minutes of this movie, I was so locked in, and it became instantly one of my favorite movie experiences of the year. It's basically like a sci-fi action dark comedy where you have Sam Rockwell right at the beginning of the movie, and this is kind of the teaser trailer as well, so this isn't a spoiler. He walks in to this diner, and he's a time traveler from the future, and he's got like this raincoat time travel device, and he tells everybody, hey, the world is absolutely going to go to shit soon because of this rising AI. I'm from this dystopian future where humanity is absolutely fucked, and there is a certain configuration of people in this diner who are destined to be the ones to help me tonight to stop the creation of this horrific AI. And so it's about him taking a group of people and seeing if they're the ones who are destined to help him. And the movie starts, he's like on trial, like 272 or some shit like that. And from the moment that Sam Rockwell walks into this diner and just takes the stage in the way that only Sam Rockwell can do, I was locked in. And I expected it was probably going to be a fun, zany, sci-fi little action thriller, and it is. But the satirical comedy that is in this movie is what makes it really stand out. It is the most genius satirical comedy that I have seen since Tropic Thunder. They shine a spotlight on all of the things about modern society and our use and our very much dependence on technology that is completely bizarre and ridiculous if you just take a step back and actually look at it objectively, but we all treat it as normal. It spotlights so many different things that are normal about our modern society and puts a really funny satirical spin on it, like people's attachment to their phones and walking around like zombies and teenagers looking at little TikTok videos and things like that, and our desensitization to violence and how just violence has become so commonplace it doesn't even faze us anymore. I mean, the funniest bit in this movie is about school shootings and how people in this, fictional world deal with school shootings being so normal. And it's the funniest fucking thing that I've seen in maybe all but one movie on this list all year round. And it's on a subject that I would never imagine you could make me laugh about. And the whole movie is like this. So it's a film that I don't know how exactly they're going to market it. I don't really know how successful it's going to be in theaters. And that's one of the reasons why I gave the preface I did at the beginning of this list, because I'm telling you about it now, not only because it is in my top 10, but because I want you to make it a priority to check this thing out in February, because it was such a massive surprise. And for somebody who has been screaming for years on YouTube about how much I hate the current state of comedy filmmaking, this is like a love letter to me saying, here's that edgy, smart shit that you've been missing for like 15 years. And I'm like, thank God, Gore Verbinski, you heard my calls. So if you're like me and you've been missing the experience of laughing your ass off in a theater in a room full of people that are laughing their ass off, go check out Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. You're welcome. Coming in at number 6 is also a film that I saw at Fantastic Fest that is not released yet. It's actually going to be going wide, I believe, May 26th of 2026. And it is a movie called Obsession. This is the directorial, feature-length debut of Curry Barker. He is a guy where him and his creative partner had a lot of comedic skits and things like that on YouTube. And he also kind of got a lot of buzz, I believe last year or the year before, with his horror short film, Milk and Cereal, which is really good. I watched it immediately after seeing this film. And this movie is about a guy who is basically in love with this girl that he is very much in a friend zone with. And he buys this little gag gift that's like a wish willow where you make a wish and you break it. And he wishes that she loved him more than anything else in the world, breaks it, assuming it's not really going to do anything. The wish works, and horrifically disastrous results ensue, to the point where it goes in so many sick, fucked up, and twisted directions that you would not imagine. You can think of some very dark and even some comedic ways that premise could be realized, and you will get some of that here, but Curry Barker is a fucked up dude. There are some things that he does with these two characters that will turn your stomach in the best way. This was one of the more shocking horror films that I've seen at any Fantastic Fest. It was also one of those great experiences that rewards you so much for walking in blind. And the woman who plays the woman who has the wish cast on her, Indy Navarrete, she gives one of the most chilling and unnerving physical performances that I've ever seen in a horror film. And when you see the film, you will know what I'm talking about. Just subtle little ways that she moves her body to make things look so unnatural will freak you the fuck out. So this is the horror film of 2026 that I am most looking forward to not only revisiting myself, but waiting to see what the reaction is going to be, what the discourse is going to be, to watch the horror community absolutely lose their mind over this one. This is going to be the horror film to beat in 2026. So put it on your calendar and get ready to see some sick shit. Now we're at the top 5, and my number 5 was one of the bigger surprises this year, and that is Marty Supreme. And this is also a big favorite for a lot of Oscar nominations and things like that. I'm not going to be surprised at all if this finally wins Timothée Chalamet his Best Actor Oscar, and maybe even walks away with the Best Picture, though I am pulling for another film we're going to talk about here very soon. And Marty Supreme on its surface could not have appealed to me less. It was very obvious this is another attempt from Timothée Chalamet, who's a phenomenal actor, but another attempt for him to really try to campaign for an Oscar. And sometimes that can turn me off a little bit. Also, just the basic premise of a guy who is super obsessed with becoming like the ping pong champion of the world. That doesn't really interest me either. But the element that did give me a little bit of curiosity is that this is directed by one of the Safdie brothers. Now, earlier on in the year, we got The Smashing Machine by Benny Safdie, which I was not a fan of at all. And so I went into this going, okay, what can Josh Safdie give me? Are these guys just absolute gold when they're together and just can't figure out how to make a movie when they're separate from each other? I guess we're going to find out. And as you can tell from it being in my top 10, it seems like possibly Josh Safdie is the one that has the sensibilities of the Safdie brother movies that I really enjoyed, like Uncut Gems. And this is very much in the vein of Uncut Gems with that Safdie signature ultra chaos. Yes, it's about a guy who is self-absorbed and trying to become the champion at ping pong, but that's like 15% maybe of the whole premise of the film. You're watching this character who is very slick, who is very well-spoken and very schemy, who can get himself in and out of different situations, trying to manipulate people and manipulate opportunities to get what he wants, just getting into absolute ridiculous situation after another, to get into so much deep shit and try to dig his way out of it just to fall into another pit. It's a movie where you're just watching a guy be so self-destructive and be so manipulative to everybody around them that you're either going to hate it because of how much of a despicable character he is, or you're going to be fascinated and glued to the screen because of how wild and adventurous and entertaining it is to watch this guy's adventure. It's also got a great supporting cast. You got Gwyneth Paltrow in here as somebody that he kind of gets somewhat romantically involved with. You even have Mr. Wonderful himself from Shark Tank, which really felt like stunt casting when I first saw it, but you watch him in the movie and he's actually pretty damn good. Like the character that he's playing, he's kind of playing himself to a certain extent. He already plays a character on Shark Tank, but he was actually pretty damn good. So good on you, Kevin. But this is one of those films that, yeah, if it's your thing, and I didn't expect it was going to be my thing, you're going to be glued to the screen for 2.5 hours. And it builds to a conclusion that, without saying too much, is not exactly the resolution that you thought you wanted, but when it happens, you're like, yeah, that is a really satisfying way to end this story and to end this character's journey. So I loved Marty Supreme. It's a pretty long movie, so I haven't given a shot to watch it a second time, but if this does walk away with a lot or most of the awards, totally cool with it because it deserves it. Coming in at number 4, we have one of the more talked about horror films of the year, and that is Zach Cregger's Weapons. Now, this is another film that you kind of seem to love or hate it, which also was the case for Barbarian. I absolutely loved Barbarian, and so it stood to reason that Weapons was going to be for me. So Zach Cregger has now become like the horror creator that I most have my eye on, and luckily he's doing Resident Evil next. So Weapons is such an intriguing story to me. The setup is such a great little elevator pitch about what if you had all these kids from one classroom just randomly get up at 2:17 in the morning and walk out their front door and disappear into the darkness. Okay, I want to know the answer to that mystery. So it's a great hook. And I really loved the nonlinear storytelling that we got here. And it was one of those things where I wasn't sure if I was going to like it while the movie was playing. I actually thought it was going to start frustrating me because it focuses on one character. And as soon as it starts to get crazy in their storyline, it just cuts off and it moves to another person. And by the third or fourth time it did this, I was like, this is either going to totally come together in the end, or I'm going to be really frustrated at this fucking yo-yo experience. But I ended up loving it. I think it had the scariest scene of the entire year for me personally, in the first chapter, where you have the door that opens to darkness and the chick comes out with the scissors and walks up and opens the back door off screen. I was glued to my seat. Like I was actually like gripping my seat in that scene. And I think there's wonderful performances all the way around, you know, Josh Brolin, Julia Garner, but especially Amy Madigan was a huge surprise to see her in this movie. You know, she's been working steadily, but I always know her as Shanice from Uncle Buck, and then, of course, from Gone Baby Gone. So I haven't seen her in a while. And this might be the role that she ends up being like defined by, because Aunt Gladys has kind of become like a pseudo horror icon already. If they actually do the Aunt Gladys prequel story, she might be solidified as one. She's getting awards consideration, which I fucking love. If she walks away with Best Supporting Actress, I will jump for joy. And so this is a film that I really liked it in theaters. And I think I even said in my review, like, yeah, it's not like top 5 of the year for me, but I really liked it. And it's one of those movies that the more I sat on it, the more I talked about it, the more I talked about it with others. And then eventually, when I did watch it a second time about a month or so ago with my family, it just locked it in. I'm like, no, I love this fucking movie. This is awesome. Coming in at number 3 was my biggest surprise of the entire year, and that is Roof Man. Now, this is a movie that has steadily climbed. Like, when I first compiled this list, it was number 10, and then I had it at number 7, and then I had it at number 5, and now I have it at number 3. After I get done recording this, I might kick myself in the ass and move it to number 2 and re-record it. Who the hell knows? Whatever version you're going to end up seeing. But this is one of those films that I figured when I heard about it and I saw the trailer, I'm like, I'm sure that'll be cute. You know, I'm sure that'll be a mildly entertaining time at the movies. It's not going to stand out or anything. And shame on me, because it absolutely took me by surprise. Not only how funny and charming it was and how heartwarming it was in moments, but just like The Long Walk, how emotionally gripping it got and how emotionally devastating certain things were. This is one of those true stories that is stranger than fiction, where you had a guy back in, I believe, the late 90s, early 2000s, who was robbing a bunch of McDonald's restaurants by cutting holes in the roof and sitting inside waiting for the morning crew and then robbing them and leaving. And he was known as the Roof Man robber. Gets caught, goes to prison, escapes from prison, and then hides out inside of a Toys R Us, and in real life a Circuit City as well, but the movie is just Toys R Us. Hides out in a Toys R Us for 6 months, all the while living a complete double life and having a relationship and going to church and all this crazy shit. So it is a story that you watch it and you go, this can't be true. And you look into the real story and there's like real footage at the end of the film and they stick pretty damn close to it. This is not that exaggerated, if exaggerated at all. So that in and of itself makes it stand out a lot. But to me, one of the biggest things that was a surprise about it was this is easily Channing Tatum's best performance. Now, he's an actor that I've always liked and I've always been entertained by. And I think like the more that he has worked, the better that he has gotten. And I think 21 Jump Street was really where I started to notice, like, this guy's actually really funny. Like, he's getting good. This is one of his funnier performances, but it's by far his best dramatic work. There's multiple points in this film where he has to show really like devastating emotion, and he's heartbreaking to the point where you as the audience start to choke up because you're looking at him, a guy who, for all intents and purposes, is not a good guy, but you look at him having regret about his daughter. You look at him toying with what's the right thing to do with this new woman and these kids that he's grown attached to, and it will choke you up to no end. And so this is one that is not only just a really well-rounded, heartwarming experience that also hits you in the feels in ways that you don't feel like you're going to want, but it actually feels rewarding by the end of it. There was a really nice message in there that for me was subtly done enough. For others, I feel like they needed it to be a little bit more direct and spelled out, which is fine. But I think that they did a good job at telling you a story of this is a guy who thinks that he's a good guy and that everybody else tells him he's a good guy, but he's not. You know, he's somebody that destroys people's lives, and him kind of refusing to come to that realization, and his relationship with Kirsten Dunst's character and her coming to that realization before he does is kind of the whole climax of the movie. So I appreciated that because we've all known people, and sometimes we've even been those people that were like, well, we're nice. I'm a nice person. You know, I'm polite. I hold the door open for people, and I talk to people with respect, but you don't acknowledge there's also some things that you can do or some things that somebody you know is doing that is also very destructive. So I found it to be a little profound too, kind of sneaking that in there. So this is one that, all those things said, is the movie this year that I can see myself rewatching the most. I could see me throwing this on as a comfort movie for years to come. So absolutely loved Roof Man. I feel like it's been kind of underseen and undervalued a bit. So I definitely wanted to throw it in my top 10 because it was one of my favorite films of the year. Coming in at number 3. Coming in at number 2 for me was my favorite horror film of the year, and that is going to be Ryan Coogler's Sinners. And this is a film that kind of went up and down my list too, where I saw it earlier on in the year. I really liked it in theaters, certainly had a couple issues with it, and it was instantly up at one of the best movies I had seen of the year at that point. And as the year went on and I started to see other movies, it kind of steadily got ticked down the list. And luckily I had a chance to rewatch it just a couple of nights ago before I started doing these end of the year lists, because that second watch completely clinched this thing as my favorite horror film of the year. All the things that I loved about it on first watch, I loved about it and appreciated even more, and even saw some other things in it that I didn't notice the first time. And some of my issues with the film the first time pretty much vanished to the background where it wasn't an issue anymore. You know, I think that this is one of the most beautifully shot movies of the year. It's a tight race this year because there's some really good looking movies. You got this, you've got F1, you got One Battle After Another. You even got Train Dreams, which I didn't care much for, but it was a beautiful looking film. So cinematography was amazing. The soundtrack, both just the original music and the motion picture score, was great. I love the way that they utilize the IMAX format, and it changes aspect ratios, like almost like in a point where it's getting ready to get you pumped up for a sequence. Great performances. You got Michael B. Jordan doing double duty here, playing two different characters, which was kind of a funny trend. We saw that a lot this year, but he definitely did the best with it. And as somebody who is an absolute whore for vampire movies, when I first watched it, I was actually kind of bummed out that it wasn't more of a vampire film, because the vampire action and carnage is really kind of relegated to the last 15 minutes or so. When I watched it the second time, to me, that was like almost a perfect choice, because there's so many other ideas. Like, the movie is so dense with things that it's trying to explore and talk about and, you know, commentate on. And the vampires are just kind of like this supplementary piece of that. So this is just such a rich movie-going experience that it's one of the few movies this year that I didn't just love, but I look forward to rewatching it time and time again, because I feel like you can just continue to unpack this movie every single time that you watch it. So this is one that I'm pulling for the most to win a lot of Oscars. I know every time we get a movie like this, us horror fans get excited. It's going to get nominated. It might win. And then we walk away empty-handed or near empty-handed. I don't know if that's going to happen this year or not, but I'm pulling for Sinners to get a few awards, maybe even a Best Picture, because it absolutely deserves it. Sinners was phenomenal. It's my number 2. But as much as I loved the 9 movies that I just talked about, there is a huge gap between my number 2 and how much I loved my number 1. My number 1 is a movie that I saw, and I pretty much knew instantly I might as well just lock that in as number 1, because there's no chance in hell any movie is going to dethrone this. And by the end of the year, there wasn't one. And this is also a film that you're going to have to keep on your radar and be patient, because it's not going to release until sometime next year. It has been acquired for distribution. There's no release date set yet, but I would imagine it's going to be in the later part of the year, because I'll be absolutely shocked if this is not a film that they position for award season consideration. And that is The Rivals of Amaziah King. This is a movie that I saw at South by Southwest back in March that I had no idea what the hell it was. I almost didn't even bother with it, because there was nothing from the description that it gave to the little promotional image that it gave that interested me. I only sat down to watch this for 2 reasons. 1, Matthew McConaughey, and 2, because there was nothing else playing in that time slot that looked any better than this. I was just like, okay, this looks like some kind of slow period piece movie, but you know, McConaughey's awesome. Maybe he'll be in the room. Fuck it, I'll go check it out for that, if nothing else. And I'm here to tell you, this is one of the most magnificent movie experiences that I have had in years. It is very, very likely that when I get a chance to rewatch this, I'm going to instantly cement this into one of my favorite films of all time, because this is just a movie that is made for me. Now, granted, there might be some of you that this is not your thing. I don't want to overhype it and say that this is going to be the greatest movie you've ever seen for everybody, but this to me is the type of film that I find so special that when I watch it and I love it, I hold it really close to the heart, because these types of films just, they do something for me as a movie fan. It's kind of like Rudderless. It's like Mud. It's like The Peanut Butter Falcon. It's a movie that just gives you this very beautiful and bittersweet look at human beings in a way that most movies, the overwhelming majority of movies that are made nowadays, can't come close to achieving. And from the moment that Matthew McConaughey walked out on stage and they started asking him like, hey, why was this the first movie that you made after years of not making a movie? And the way that he started describing it was one of the most intriguing things, where he's like, well, I read this script and I just could see so many people that I've met in my life in these characters. And then he started to describe the movie as a musical, and I was like, oh God, I'm totally fucked. But then clarified it and say, like, it's kind of a musical because music is a part of the language of the film. It's not a traditional musical, but music is a part of the language of the film. And I say all that to preface it with like what I was walking into and what I knew about the film when they started this thing. And from the moment it starts, when you have Matthew McConaughey and a group of others in some random redneck podunk town pulling up into an old ass Dairy Queen. It looks like it should be closed, and pull out banjos and guitars and harmonicas and immediately just start singing and playing like some bluegrass music. Right in that moment, it's almost like it captures humanity in a way that I haven't seen on screen in so long. And there's going to be a lot that I'm talking about with this film, but the basic premise of it, and it's a hard movie to describe, is that you have Matthew McConaughey, who is a beekeeper, and a girl that he used to look after comes back into his life. And as he starts to kind of bring her into his lifestyle and his music and the beekeeping and everything, all of his bees get stolen by one of his rivals, played by Kurt Russell. And I tell you all that, and just like with Marty Supreme, I feel like I've only described about 10% of the movie for you. It's got incredible music. It's got amazing performances. It's got the goriest scene of the entire year, and it's not a horror film at all, and it immediately erupts into the biggest theater-wide laugh that I've experienced in years. It's a movie that starts as like this musical drama about human beings and their relationships, and then it kind of starts to turn into a bit of a heist film, and then it starts to turn into more of a revenge thriller. I could talk about this movie specifically for 30 minutes and still not get you to understand even a fraction of what you have in store for you and how wonderful this movie is. As I said before, I would bet that we're probably going to have to wait a number of months before we're able to all discuss this film. And I hope that those months go quick because I desperately want to rewatch this movie and I desperately want to talk about it with so many other people. This is a movie that I haven't seen a movie that I've loved this much that I've been able to talk about on this channel in an end of the year ranking, maybe since I started my channel. Maybe with the exception of one or two films. That's how much I loved it. So The Rivals of Amziah King, I'm going to be done gushing about it for now. This is my #1 movie of the year by a landslide. It's one of the best movies I've seen in a very long time. I cannot wait to see it again. I cannot wait for all of you guys to see it. And after you get done, hopefully being rewarded by trusting me with Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, and Obsession, please go check out The Rivals of Amziah King because it's fucking phenomenal. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, click over here for all of my 2025 new release reviews, and I'm also going to put the playlist up here for all of my other end of the year rankings, of which pretty much all of them are out now. And before long, we'll do that massive ranking. Just keep an eye out for some kind of a written announcement for it. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.